So our next speaker is one I am excited. I'm excited about all of them. But this guy I've known for a few years. I've coached him and I've seen him just explode. Number one on iTunes, number one fitness podcast, created how many apps? How many best-selling apps?
6 in a row.
6 in a row, best-selling apps. Not like, 100 downloads. I'm talking like tens and tens of thousands of downloads, hundreds of thousands of downloads. Then he went off the grid for like a year. Like he built, and he had a best-selling book. He's like, I'm just gonna go off the grid. And now he lives like in Tennessee, shooting rattlesnakes. I don't know what the hell he does. And he's a professional musician and releases CDs. If you think of like a Renaissance man, this guy is it. And we brought in acoustic guitar because I want him later to play a song. I think that'll be kind of cool. Maybe like Row, Row, Row Your Boat?
Yeah, something like that.
That'd be fun. So he's just gonna come up now and just rock it. One of the sharpest guys I know, just smart, compassionate. He knows his stuff. And his talk is called Find Out What You Do Best and Nail It. So,
that's actually not what it's called.
That's actually not what it's called. That's just the first slide. Whatever it's called, it's going to be freaking good.
I think you called it, Ryan. I'm just going to come up here with you.
Just come on. Ladies and gentlemen, Abel James!
Thank you. You called it, I think, How to Be a True Lifestyle Entrepreneur, which at this conference is like a total throwaway, like talk about whatever you want type thing.
Yeah, I didn't know what you... When I pick my speakers, and all the speakers know, I said, just talk about whatever. Like, just do whatever you're going to do, because I know he's just going to be good. So it's going to be awesome. Abel James, here we go.
Thanks, man. We got the clicker? All right, baby. Sweet. So I just want to start by saying thank you so much to Ryan Lee. This event is different from almost every other one that I've been to. Ryan, you said that you felt like you were starting something, right, yesterday? And I feel that too. It's a shame that it's going to be the last and only one, but I think...
I'll do another one in 3 years.
Right. But let's all start by just giving Ryan a huge round of applause.
Thank you. Please, sit everybody, sit.
No, but really, there's a lot of heart in this place, so I appreciate that. So, along those lines, how to be a true lifestyle entrepreneur. No one really knows what that means. That's pretty ephemeral, a little squishy. So what I'm going to do, my background kind of has a lot of weird little things, including being a strategy consultant and working in intelligence for a while. So I'm going to make this pretty tactical for you guys and talk about some things that I think a lot of people, especially in the marketing world, aren't comfortable talking about, because it's really easy to say, oh, I have all these number one things and I've sold hundreds of thousands of dollars or units or made multiple millions in the past few years. All of those things may or may not be true, but people are usually skipping over the parts that are really hard. And so I want to kind of talk to you guys very honestly about the bad parts of all this. You can grow too quickly, you can start the wrong business, and if it succeeds, you're in trouble, and I've seen a lot of people flame out in the past few years. So I want to help you guys really focus on the things that you're passionate about so you can rock it. So just a quick backstory, because we don't have much time. That was me in my early 20s. I've been a musician for a long time. It's one of the things that has saved my life on multiple occasions. We can talk about that a little bit later, but basically, I didn't grow up with much money. My family was from the middle of nowhere in New Hampshire, and so I got this big fancy job in DC after college to try to pay off my loan so I wouldn't be in debt. And for the first time in my life, I had really good health insurance. And I wanted to use it because I've always been a health nut. And it was interesting because I went into, the best doctor I could find, his office every week in Washington, D.C., and I said, Doc, we have a history. My mom has a thyroid problem. A lot of my family has high blood pressure, high triglycerides, heart issues, and being overweight, gaining weight as you age. How can we nip all these things in the bud? And so I was tracking my metrics. Basically, he said, well, you're in pretty good shape now, but there are some things that aren't looking too good. So what you need to do is eat less, exercise more. At the time, I was running 30 miles a week, and I was in relatively good shape. But being confined to an office building and working in a cubicle farm, combined with following bad advice really, really well over the course of a few months, which is basically avoid fat in the diet, avoid cholesterol in the diet as well, exercise a lot, and basically force yourself to be hungry and miserable, the Biggest Loser style. That's what I looked like after a few months. One of the interesting things is that a lot of the people around me, also who were working in all these cubicles and not really sleeping that well, drinking it all away, all the misery, they started looking like that too. And I think a lot of us settle for a lot less than we deserve and start looking like that, kind of like overweight, flabby, puffy, as the years go on. You just accept it as a normal part of aging. But it took me, short story, I came home one night, my apartment building burned down, and I lost everything, including all my instruments, the album I was working on, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I saw that, and it's not me, it didn't feel like me, especially because I'm such a health nut, right? And I'm like, clearly this isn't working, so I have to do something that's the complete opposite of all this. And then, ultimately, I became fat-burning man. Jeff, I think, made a really awesome point about being real in all of this. And what I found is that if you're already a health nut and you're already doing things that are really health conscious and you're following the wrong advice, like I looked really bad and felt really bad because I was following the wrong advice too well. You can do that in marketing too, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So if you just realign that with the right advice, focusing on real food and getting back to your roots, getting back out in nature, sleeping really well, stupid, easy stuff like meditation and doing the things that you love, you can really become a whole person. And that gives you a lot of strength, not just with your health, but also with how you feel about your life, how you feel about your business. When you have this energy, you can do incredible things with your life. So,
Abel, you took a picture of me again, my torso.
I know, man. You're
I'm really
beautiful,
getting upset.
Beautiful person,
Thank you.
Ryan. So, I want to start out with this. Actually, it was Peter Hoppenfeld, the guy who has the greatest mustache in all the world. I don't know if he's here today, but he was here yesterday. He's my lawyer, and at one of the conferences I was speaking at, he spoke, and he kind of like whittled down the whole thing that I do into this little tidbit, which I think is brilliant. You need to find what you do best and nail it. So for me, podcasting was a really easy fit. It's something that comes naturally after being, a performer as a musician for a while, knowing how to turn all the knobs and basically use your voice. Actually, when I worked with the federal government, I had a nickname, Mr. Radio Voice. And when I first started blogging, a lot of people were just like, hey, you should start a podcast. And I'm like, what the heck is a podcast? And sure enough, once I focused on that, saw that it was working, it went straight up to #1, and that became kind of the core focus of my brand and what we do. And these days, we'll talk about why it's a mistake to do too much, as Jeff and a lot of other people have mentioned. But it's important to play to your weaknesses. And one of the coolest things, when I started, Jillian Michaels was kind of the enemy, right? She was like the biggest loser, eat less, exercise more, no pain, no gain. And I found that actually when I did the opposite of that, I actually ate more and exercised less and focused on eating real food as opposed to eating like a rabbit or whatever. I could move really quickly and come out with an authentic message that was really the antithesis from what you see in popular media. And because you're an authentic person and you don't have a board saying what you can and can't do, you don't have people who are owning your name, you can move really quickly and say exactly what you think the right message is, no matter what niche you're in. So another big piece of that is you want to make your content an authentic side effect of your unique lifestyle. And what I mean by that is that, especially these days, it seems like the internet is whizzing 1,000 miles an hour and everyone's coming out and doing better than you, and they're, nailing Pinterest, Periscope, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, newsletters, podcasts, YouTube, all of this stuff, and they're doing it way better than you. The way that you can get around that is by focusing on what you do every day and make that content for the people who are following you. Ryan is a great example of that. Somehow he turns him going to a movie into content for his entire newsletter, his entire blog, and it's really important that you find that thing that you do. For us, we're foodies and we focus on health. So we share pictures of our dinner, and we pretty much every day I'm eating my meals cold, because the first thing I do is share it with the people who are wondering what we're eating, how to actually implement this into their lifestyle. So no matter what niche you're in, no matter what you're doing, live your life. You can't really artificially make this stuff. I think you could a few years ago, in the ClickBank years or whatever. Has anyone seen what is happening with ClickBank recently, by the way? They're going to put that huge banner up on all the hot pages, which is going to steal a bunch of links and stuff like that. I think the old way of doing things, where you kind of prop up this identity that's not authentic, is going to die. So even if it seems like you're growing slowly, play long ball. You're going to win in the end. Another really important thing to do that makes creating content a lot easier is simply asking your fans on a regular basis what they need and giving it to them. So an example of that is basically, so every month I have a customer service report that I get, which is basically people's feedback on the products that we have, the premium members also being hooked into social media, is incredible intelligence, because every month, without fail, I'll get basically 10 issues that people are talking about. Or say 10 people come in and they're talking about whatever is most important to them. 6 of them are usually talking about the same thing, except that same thing changes every single month. One of the advantages that a lot of people don't really talk about of being small and scrappy is that you can create content really, really quickly with no red tape, with no bureaucracy, with no censorship. This is the first time ever that you can really do that. You don't have to go through the media machine. You can put that stuff out that people are talking about before the media machine and all of the marketers try to capitalize on it. So do that. Be very authentic. Listen to the people who are listening to you and let them be your teachers. Another thing that I think people kind of glaze over, when you write a book or whatever, it's not easy to write a book. And a lot of people never finish because they try to sit down and write a book. That's not how it works. You write a tiny little bit every day, and over the course of time, maybe years, eventually you have this massive body of work. And I think we can all agree that media is media is super important. Multimedia, creating audio, video. But if there's one thing in common between all of us who are working in this room, with a massive amount of content that we have to create, becoming a better writer will always serve you. And it's fantastic practice for whether you're writing headlines, social media, blog posts, or anything, even just like journaling to get your thoughts down on the page. Writing a little bit every single day will make you better. And so that's another huge takeaway point from all of this. You want to make your content make you better at your content. And so, Jeff showed a picture of one of his first videos, which, obviously he's come a long way. If you watch mine, it's atrocious. You get started with anything and you are bad, and you have to get it out there, let people kind of interact with it, not watch it or whatever, go through that experience. But over the course of time, if you're doing 8 podcasts a day, or if you're writing a lot of blog posts every week, you're going to start off being inefficient, sloppy, and terrible. And then over the course of time, because you're outworking other people, you are practicing your craft. And I think it's so brilliant that, a lot of people here have been with Ryan for 5-10 years. And, even when Ryan started, he wasn't great at this. No idea what he was doing. Now he really does. It's a part of who he is. So make this a part of who you are. If you want to keep up with a massive amount of content you need to create, become a better writer, become more efficient. It will always serve you. Another thing that really helps is batching your production and being really consistent. So our friend Todd Herman, awesome dude, great presentation yesterday. One of the most important points to take away from that is the cost of switching tasks. So I realized whenever I had a show playing music or whatever, this has happened for years. I'm a serial monogamist, so whatever girlfriend I was with, or my wife now, would basically say, "You're being really weird today. What is wrong? Are you mad at me?" And for the longest time, I didn't really know why. but it was always because I had a show that night. You kind of like get in that game mode or whatever. That happens too in a lot of cases. Certainly happens to me, happens to a lot of other people. If you're making a YouTube video that day, if you're making a podcast, or anything else where you kind of have to have this public persona, this exaggerated version of you or whatever, you got to get psyched up. So it's a lot better if you want to be consistent, if you want to play long ball and create good content and not mess around with switching between things, to, for example, I put out a weekly, about hour-long podcast, and I record usually 6 to 8 in a day, and I'll do it once or twice a month between my shows and other people's shows. Before I did that, it was a mess. It was really hard to keep up with that amount of content, but when you batch it, you get in that mode, and you get psyched up, and the first one, you're kind of getting warmed up, and then by the third and the fourth, you are ready to rock, and you're just feeling it. So batch, whether it's writing, but especially multimedia, batch your content and put it out consistently. Environmental design is another really cool thing because, like Ryan was saying, we live in the middle of the woods right now. All the distractions of urban life are kind of gone, so it's a fantastic way to turn down the noise and really focus on creating great content. A lot of people don't realize that they choose their own environment. So, for example, my wife was a professional video game player for a long time. And so we found that we would look at the controllers, just kind of unwind and play Call of Duty or something like that at the end of the day. And we thought that we were doing it too much. It was kind of like sucking up time. So it was a simple matter of taking those controllers, putting them into the console underneath the TV. Once we did that and put it in a little box, at the end of the day, when we came down and sat down on the couch, all of a sudden, we didn't really want to play video games. We went from playing 3 or 4 times a week to, I think it was once or twice in the next 6 months, just by making it a little bit harder to play video games. On the opposite side, if you walk into our house, we have a mandolin for my wife to play. We have a bunch of guitars, a piano, thank you, sitting out. And if you're bored, you have that moment you just want to relax. You want to make sure that your good habits are really easy to do. You don't have any sort of blockage between these things that you want to encourage. So if you want to be a good writer, have a notebook, keep it out. If you want to be a good writer, don't have all of these tabs open. Use one window and just write. So turn down the distractions. They're everywhere. Now, another part from a lifestyle point, we've been traveling, like Ryan said, for the past year. And I think it's really tempting for people who are working really hard in all of this to kind of get stuck wherever you are. It's like, I need to grow my business. I can't keep up with all of this. I feel like I'm treading water or whatever. We wanted to turn that on its head and say, well, what if we just kind of lived anywhere for a while? So for the past year, we started in Austin just for like 6 months. All right, let's try on this one lifestyle because business was going really well. Lived in a mansion, rented like this mansion, drove a Porsche around, had staff, had a concierge and all of this, and we realized really quickly, we don't want this at all. Sold everything, sold all the cars, sold the house that I had in Austin as well, and for the past year, we've been living out a 380 square foot trailer and traveling around North America, which isn't easy, but it's amazing, and you can keep up with all of your work. You can do this. You don't have to get stuck in whatever city you're in. Now, we parked the trailer in Wilder, Tennessee, in the Smoky Mountains. It's beautiful and so quiet. And one of the amazing things about it is that we're getting more work done than ever because one of the biggest strengths that you guys have is that you can work from pretty much anywhere. You're hooked up to a computer, to this wonderful gift that is the internet. Certainly not a perfect place, but it's a way that you can continue to create content from wherever you are. So go city shopping, live somewhere weird. And one of the most important things to know from all of that is it can be really, really cheap. In Austin, the place we were living in was like $6,000 a month. Now it's at $1,200 a month. So if you reduce your overhead, which is this point right here, you can really start doing a lot more work and not focus on trying to squeeze all of this money out of what you're doing. This is a really important point. Whenever you're listening to any sort of internet marketing, the numbers that you're hearing are gross, not net. So if someone has a $7 million launch or whatever, a lot of my friends have had big launches, and a lot of times they lose their pants and flame out, even if they did generate millions of dollars because they're not keeping it. Their overhead is way too high. Don't go bankrupt because of your success. Focus on the amount of money that you're taking home every single month, and that will make sure that you can continue to play long ball. How are we doing on time? Do we have just a couple more months? Cool. Just about out of time. So before I go, make a bucket list and cross it off. Some of the things, maybe it's jumping out of a plane, maybe it's living somewhere weird or whatever, but so many people don't take advantage of this. All these, especially Americans in the Western world, don't take their vacations. As lifestyle entrepreneurs, we can live our vacations and let that inform our content. I wrote a lot of my book in Bali, so do it. Actually do it. It's really easy to talk smack about it, but it's important to make your vacations real. So I'm just about out of time. I want to end by saying you can unplug too much. And freedom doesn't mean not working. It doesn't mean, going to some beach and being like, screw it, I'm rich now or whatever. It's about finding your purpose, that thing that you truly believe in, because you can have the best of both worlds. You can be happy and let that inform your content. And one of the coolest things about unplugging so much and for so long is that I realized that I was absolutely worthless without that passion for service, where you're actually improving the world through what you do. So live your authentic lifestyle, let your content be a side effect of that, and practice freedom. It's not something that you ever just have, it's a moving target. So go out there, live your dream, because you guys actually can. So thank you so much, really appreciate it.
Abel James! Woo!
Buddy.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you.
By the way, you spelled freedom wrong on the slide. I don't know if you guys noticed that. He spelled it with an O, which was a little bizarre. Stay here for 1 sec. Let's just see. Guys, what we're going to do, in 7 minutes, we're going to take a break. So please stay, just give us 7 more minutes. Awesome. And
thanks, man.
By the way, I'm wondering if you could be better looking and have a cooler voice.
Play to your strength, right?
Play to your strength, yeah. I feel like such a little schlubby. But
we're like twins.
We are like twins. We look exactly alike. And we have the same voice. Hello and welcome to the Freedom Show. In a little bit, Abel was going to play a song, which is going to be pretty cool. What do you have an original you're thinking of?
I have a few ideas. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Might be a little surprise.
All right.
We'll see what happens.
It's going to be fun. And let's see. Is there? Give us Let's have one good question for Abel. Who has a question for Abel? Back there. Who is that? Oh, hey, Ed.
Hi.
Okay, her question was, she has a podcast, and how do you get people off your podcast onto your list?
Yeah, it's a great question. Basically, you continue to put out great content over the course of time and make sure in every show you don't overwhelm people with calls to action. So especially while I was scaling up at the beginning, I didn't sell anything for the first, I think it was 8 months. I didn't have a single product. The one thing that they could do was sign up for my list. So that's really important too, because if Apple owns your list, then you could be toast. My podcast has gone down multiple times for no reason. There's no customer service with a lot of these big companies. So it's essential that you get people on your own channel direct to market, and the list is the best way to do that. So I would suggest, especially as you're scaling up, as you're getting some momentum, don't sell yet. Sell basically a way for them to subscribe to you, and they will. Not everyone will, and definitely value the people who don't sign up as well, because they're referring all over the place. You can't measure that. So keep creating awesome content. Put that call to action at the beginning and the end of the podcast, and people will definitely come to you.
Yeah, and I agree with Abel. If you guys listen to my show, the only thing I have is a call to action just to subscribe for the list. And I'm going to be changing around what I'm offering, and Abel does that. And it's funny because when I talked to Abel a couple months ago, we were talking about the podcast, and I was just starting mine, and I'm like, I'm thinking maybe advertisers. I'm starting to get the numbers up, and your advice was great. What'd you tell me?
I think I said keep it simple. Don't do that. What you want is momentum.
No sponsors.
Zero sponsors, zero advertising. Because what that does, it clouds your message. And you reach a certain point, and you can do that. But if you want to get momentum, if you want to get people excited, then don't start there. A lot of people are advertising. And so I think what it does to people on the other end is like, oh, he's doing it for money. Right? And if you have a free show, you're doing it for passion. You're an actual person doing this because you believe in it. So it's important to make sure that people understand that from the beginning, and then you can always scale it from there.
Yeah, I do. I agree. I'm not going to do, and because of that talk, I'm like, I'm not worried about sponsors anymore, and I'm not going to. I don't even want them. So
Nice.
It's great. Let's do one more quick question for Abel. Any questions for Abel James? Podcasting question. You're almost going to. You just stretched.
Back there.
There's a question back there. Who is that? Hey, Sean.
Where do you get your inspiration for the questions you ask on your podcast?
So the question is, where do you get your inspiration for the questions you ask?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I'm often a guest on other people's podcasts, and they'll have this big list of questions that they send me ahead of time. I barely look at it. Doesn't matter, right?
I never look at them. I delete them.
Yeah, because it's meant to be. I see it as a musician like jamming. You're improvising, you're going back and forth, you're building on ideas, you're coming up with something unique and interesting. And if you have this list of questions, it gets really tiresome, and people are focusing, the interviewer tends to focus on the next question instead of building the next theme and keeping the other person on track and doing something really cool. So what I recommend is come into the interview knowing who's on the other end. I can't tell you how many people have had me on their podcast about my book or whatever and haven't read my book, right? Like, so if someone comes on your podcast, read their book, go to their website, know what they're about, know what their family is like, ask them about it, make it real, and focus less on the questions and more about making it a really interesting, unique conversation that no one else can have.
And get a deeper voice.
And get a deeper
That
voice,
always
too.
helps when we talk like this. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Abel James.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, buddy. Great. He's going to be back on stage in a little bit to jam.